Suddenly, a mysterious flying object fall into a small mountain village, where the villagers were already struggling to find food, and when this strange treasure fell from the sky, they got excited, believing it must hold some kind of delicious feast inside. Laughing and cheering, they placed luobao over a bonfire, ready to enjoy a rare meal. But just as the pot was almost boiling, the unexpected happened. A living man stepped out from the object. The hungry village children, thinking it was some kind of tasty creature, charged at him all at once. Watching from a distance, a young man witnessed this bizarre scene and was completely stunned. This was the first time a living person had ever emerged from luobao. The man who came out seemed to suffer from memory loss, unable to recall anything about who he was, except for one thing. He was sure he came from the world outside the wall. But when he said that, everyone around laughed at him, refusing to believe such a place even existed. To them, there was no world beyond the wall. Determined to return to his homeland beyond the Great Wall, the man set off. But before he could leave, a bounty hunter arrived in search of luobao. Without hesitation, the hunter began to transform, demanding the villagers hand over the treasure, threatening that if they didn't comply, he'd block off their entire village. Panicked, the villagers all pointed at the man from luobao. The bounty hunter didn't believe them and assumed they were mocking him, so in a rage, he attacked. The man tried to explain, but the hunter didn't listen. Atali, one of the villagers, took a stand to protect his people, pulling out a stone ring passed down from his father to summon a mecha for battle. His companions tried to stop him, warning that if the mecha was defeated, the person inside would disappear with it. But Atali was firm in his resolve to fight. However, he lacked combat experience and couldn't even block a single move. In just 2 strikes, he was cornered and close to death. Seeing this, the man from luobao rushed back to the object, hoping to find something useful, and to his surprise, he discovered another stone ring. He immediately transformed, summoning his own mecha, leaving everyone around in shock. They had never seen someone else summon one too. After showing off his power, the man took off running, but the bounty hunter pursued him fiercely. Yet when he attacked, he noticed that the man's mecha felt like soft mud. Seizing the opportunity, the man counterattacked with a flurry of combos and a stormy blast, easily defeating the hunter. But to everyone's shock, the bounty hunter didn't vanish, which defied their usual understanding of how things worked. A curious girl asked who he really was, while a red-haired guy mocked him, calling him a big idiot. The man just smiled and said, "All right then, my name is Big Idiot Bakuyaro." With the village safe again, Bakuyaro said goodbye, determined to return beyond the wall. A mysterious man who had been observing from afar quickly followed. As the saying goes, chasing a mountain kills a horse, and after running for hours, Bakuyaro still hadn't reached the wall. Exhausted from driving his mecha for too long and with his stomach growling from hunger, he wished food would fall from the sky. Just then, a handsome guy holding a rain fan appeared, telling him that the wall was much farther than it looked. It would take many days to reach it. When Bakuyaro asked who he was, the man proudly introduced himself as Joby B, the smartest and most handsome person in the world, and praised Bakuyaro's endurance for piloting a mecha non-stop for 5 or 6 hours, a feat most people couldn't manage beyond 1 or 2 hours. But Bakuyaro was confused, since this was only his second time using one. Joby asked again if he truly came from outside the wall, and Bakuyaro confirmed it. Joby's assistant, Jiaolian, reacted normally, expressing disbelief. Joby then explained that the wall was 10,000 units tall, and since his own height was 1.7 units, it would take 5,678 of him stacked to match its height. He laughed, asking if Bakuyaro really planned to climb over 5,678 of him. But to his surprise, Bakuyaro suddenly punched him. Luckily, Joby had his self-designed protective suit. Bakuyaro wasn't sure why he got so angry, but after landing the punch, he realized that while he could beat one of him, he couldn't beat 5,678 of him. Joby didn't mind, and even complimented him with a giant head pat. In the end, they made a deal. Joby would help Bakuyaro return to the outside world, but he needed a few days to prepare. With nowhere else to go, Bakuyaro returned to the village. When the villagers found him again, he was sound asleep from exhaustion. The next morning, he woke up full of energy, splitting wood with his head like it was nothing. In gratitude for saving Atali, Bit made him a new set of clothes and declared that they were now even. Bakuyaro was confused. He didn't remember owing him anything. Bit angrily reminded him that when he fell from the sky, he smashed Bit's house. Feeling a little guilty, Bakuyaro decided to help him build a new one, finishing the job in just a few quick moves. Then Elsa pulled Bakuyaro aside and explained that their border village had always been poor, barely scraping by. When Bakuyaro asked why they didn't move, Elsa told him this land was the battleground between 2 great nations, Liehua and Liute, and their ancestors had no choice but to flee here. They had to beg a small power called Yichi Xiaomu for permission to live here, and even now, they didn't have the strength to dream of leaving, nor the extra food to support outsiders. He politely asked Bakuyaro to leave. Meanwhile, the bounty hunter who fled earlier reported everything to the Liute officials. The kind-hearted princess was deeply curious and eager to meet Bakuyaro, but they couldn't send troops directly, fearing it would provoke Liehua, so instead, they pressured the president of Yichi to bring him over. Back in the village, suddenly there was an abundance of game game meat. The villagers guessed it was Bakuyaro's welcome gift, but then came the sound of whistles. Yichi's army had arrived, and the captain demanded the villagers hand over the man from Luobao. The villagers tried to say he had already left, but who knew what would happen next? The president, trying to avoid trouble, shockingly ordered his men to erase the small mountain village completely. Atali immediately transformed to face the enemy, but due to his lack of combat experience, he was no match and was effortlessly toyed with by the squad captain. Meanwhile, Elsa entered Luobao to search for help and unexpectedly discovered a stone ring. Without hesitation, he transformed on the spot, and in front of everyone's stunned eyes, Elsa completed the transformation. Just as he was about to boast with fierce words, he stepped forward and suddenly fell straight through the ground, vanishing from sight, leaving everyone in utter shock. At that moment, the captain was strangling Atali, his life hanging by a thread. No one could have guessed that Yarrow hadn't left. He was simply napping in an old well. Seeing his village in chaos, he immediately transformed and delivered a blinding kick that easily defeated the enemy. But just then, the earth began to shake violently, as though some massive beast beneath the surface was awakening. And then, the same villagers who had fought beside Yarrow turned on him, tying him up tightly. This followed directly from the previous chapter. After Yarrow defeated a soldier, the ground trembled, and a giant steel warship emerged from underground like a monstrous creature. It turned out that Elsa had accidentally activated the warship when he fell below. That night, the captured captain convinced Bit to betray Yarrow, and the president sweetened the deal by promising not only to pardon all past offenses, but also to grant the villagers fertile land to rebuild their home, as long as they handed over Yarrow. So, while Yarrow was fast asleep, they tied him up. The next morning, Elsa piloted the warship with joy spread across the villagers' faces, except for Atali, who was deeply ashamed that he failed to protect the man who had once saved him. Soon, the warship arrived at the designated location. The president smiled and played a short video showing green hills, clear water, and herds of livestock. He claimed this would be their promised land. The dream was big and beautiful, and the villagers were thrilled. All they needed to do was cross the nearby valley to reach their new home. After receiving the president's promise not to harm Yarrow, everyone relaxed and sailed ahead. Bit, however, stayed behind to join the army. His first mission was to fire the cannon in farewell for his friends, but to everyone's horror, the cannonball was real, and the valley was rigged with explosives. The moment he fired, the traps were triggered. It was a betrayal meant to wipe them all out. The president's warship revealed its true colors, shedding its fake kindness and ordering the mass detonation. He wanted to avoid offending powerful nations and chose to slaughter his own people instead. Just in time, Bit stole back Yarrow's stone core, allowing Yarrow to transform and escape his cage. Elsa, ashamed and moved to see Yarrow return to save him again, let out a cry of determination and with all his strength piloted the warship through the boulders, breaking free. After this betrayal, everyone lost faith in the country. They decided to treat the warship as their new village, renaming it High Edge Cannon, and continuing their journey, believing a true homeland lay ahead. In this world surrounded by high walls, the wall itself was considered a god, the very foundation of the land. Katie dispatched a large force to eliminate Yarrow and his group, with Joby B appointed as the commander. Yarrow, Atali, and Elsa transformed immediately to defend themselves. Elsa took control of the warship, while Yarrow and Atali faced the enemy. Regular soldiers stood no chance, so Joby B summoned his elite, the 4 Ghost Mercenary Squad, and ordered the regulars to retreat. The mercenaries sprayed vast quantities of insulating particles, instantly disabling the warship's ability to float. Just as Joby B expected, the ship's systems matched theirs. Driving up, he greeted Yarrow casually, as if they weren't at war. Yarrow was stunned. Joby B had promised to help him escape the wall, and now he was attacking. Joby B said he would act based on his own judgment, and whether Yarrow believed him or not was up to him. With that, he left the battlefield. The fight began, and Yarrow and Atali were quickly overwhelmed. Elsa rushed in to help, but the experienced mercenaries gave them no chance to fight back. In that desperate moment, Yarrow awakened a new ability. He created physical clones of himself. Joby B, watching from afar, was thrilled and finally grasped Yarrow's true power. The 4 Yarrows attacked simultaneously, defeating the mercenaries in a flash. Xiao Lian, never having seen such an attack, asked in awe, while Joby B explained, "Normally, belief creates one mecha, one vessel, but for humans without limits to belief, the rules no longer applied. This visitor from beyond the wall might truly be the one from the world-ending prophecy." Xiao Lian immediately ordered all remaining soldiers to strike, and as new mechas flooded the field, Yarrow's group was helpless. It seemed like the end. But then unexpectedly, Joby B turned on his own army, pulling out a remote and destroying all the mechas and weapons on his side. Driving up to the front lines, he declared he would surrender. Everyone stared in disbelief, unsure of what trick he was playing. With no weapons left, the soldiers had no choice but to retreat and report back. But they all knew a stronger attack was sure to come soon. After driving the Empire's troops away, Joby B turned around and was met with warm applause. A beautiful youth defecting from the Empire, many thought he'd gone mad, but his dream was to change the world. He and his best friend, Jelutan, had both grown up in the northern border of Liehua, and the harsh childhood opened their eyes to the the country's ugliness. They made a vow, one with a pen, the other with a sword, to change their homeland. When Jelutan heard about his friend's betrayal, he personally pursued the warship. Alone, he stopped the entire vessel, and with a single move, he defeated Elsa, though he paused just in time to spare the war-ending treasure. He asked Joby B why he would follow an outsider. Joby B answered that Leihua was a sinking ship. They had once tried to steer it together, but now he had found a new vessel. Jelutan replied that this vessel and its outsider would be destroyed. The ones truly sinking were them. But Yarrow wouldn't accept that fate and transformed on the spot, ready to face him in battle. As Jelutan brandished his giant sword, fierce and unstoppable, Jelutan slashed Yarrow into pieces. But to everyone's shock, Yarrow didn't disappear. Instead, he multiplied. As Jelutan focused his attacks on the three clones, Yarrow suddenly struck with a hand chop straight into his chest. Most thought the battle was over just like before, but Joby knew it wouldn't be that simple. Sure enough, Jelutan grabbed Yarrow and released a powerful beam from his chest, paralyzing Yarrow in an instant, then warned Joby that this was the price of siding with an outsider and already urged him to return with him. The old village chief saw Yarrow and Joby as bad luck and hoped they would leave, but Joby calmly explained that even if they left, the villagers would still be in danger. Katie already viewed the warship as a taboo. The moment they abandoned the village and boarded the ship, they had no way back. Now, only Joby could stop Jelutan. He asked Dr. Sora for help and decided to negotiate directly with Jelutan. When Jelutan questioned if Joby had forgotten their northern coin oath, Joby replied with a half-joking, "Sorry, I've healed. I heal fast." Jelutan burst into laughter and said, "So what? Don't try to fool me." Joby simply said he wanted to change the world now, not just the nation. Jelutan, knowing Joby's threat, tried to eliminate this imperial renegade, but Yarrow intervened just in time, asking why Jelutan kept forcing someone who had already given up his past. As they were about to fight again, Joby instructed Dr. Sora to fire a particle cannon. Jelutan was unimpressed, doubting it could even aim properly, but Joby told him to contact the capital. A blast had just struck the palace. Jelutan couldn't believe the cannon had such range. Joby fired again, and a second blast hit the palace. Furious and stunned, Jelutan gritted his teeth. Joby explained this warship was the world-destroying weapon recorded in the Forbidden Book, and with more fire, Katie's palace would be reduced to dust. Cornered, Jelutan had no choice but to retreat. Joby then peeled off a sticker on his hand. A simple trick, yet Jelutan still fell for it. After all this, Yarrow finally accepted Joby, and Dr. Sora revealed that the cannon had actually been a bluff. The explosions were pre-planted bombs Joby had detonated at the perfect moment. Everyone was stunned. Joby and the other beautiful boys had lived in a place called the Handsome Boy Ranch, which was actually a prison run by a lord. Anyone who tried to escape was killed, and once a month someone was selected for cruel experiments while others cared for those who returned mentally broken. That was their life, until one boy snatched a stone ring, activated a mecha, destroyed the lab, and escaped, later defeating the police guards. He had mistaken Yarrow's group for enemy forces. When he alone blocked their ship, everyone thought he was as strong as Jelutan, but Yarrow stepped in and saved him. Seeing the boy's weakness, everyone shared food and listened to their painful story. Joby, once a high-ranking official of the Leihua Empire, knew such experiments existed in all nations. The only difference was whether they used slaves or test subjects. Yarrow invited them to live outside the wall, but the boy didn't believe such a place existed and said this place was their home. His resolve touched Elsa. Suddenly, alarms blared. Dilexi had arrived, the local lord himself. The boys panicked, having no courage to fight, but Yarrow once again stepped forward and with one punch sent the lord's mecha flying. The terrified lord guessed Yarrow might be the infamous Dark Army captain, the one who defeated the Yichi alliance and drove off the demon general of Leihua. Yarrow was surprised at his growing reputation but didn't care. He just warned them never to harm the children again or he wouldn't be merciful. Crisis resolved. Everyone enjoyed their food, but the boy Blue sat alone, staring at his stone ring. Yarrow guessed he felt guilty for failing to protect others. Yarrow reminded him of how he bravely stood at the ship's front, ready to die. Blue admitted his belief had always been about saving himself, even though his brother was there too, making him feel selfish. Yarrow said nothing more and walked away. Meanwhile, the defeated lord gathered every stone ring he could find. Just then, the doors burst open. Yarrow and his team had arrived. The next morning, Yarrow accompanied the lord to the ranch, shouting for the boys to surrender. If they didn't, he would destroy the place with new weapons. The boys thought Yarrow had sided with the lord and saw the rings in his hands. But just then, the once timid Blue stood tall. The boys released smoke as cover, and Yarrow pretended to be overwhelmed. Joby used lights to guide the boys, who stole the rings back from Bit. The boys all transformed. With the battle decided, Yarrow deactivated his armor, and the lord realized he had been tricked. Now the boys had 11 mechas, enough to rival a small army. Even a full military assault might not defeat them. At last, the boys understood they couldn't rely on adults forever. They had to protect their home themselves. This was a world surrounded by high walls, where the walls were worshipped like gods. At the critical moment, Joby used electricity to knock the guard unconscious. Elsewhere, Yalu was taken to a lab where Plak donned a mask and handed him over to a mad scientist. This scientist believed that if someone without belief could control a light mech, perhaps it could allow even the weak-willed to do the same. Joby B told Bit to shoot the switch on the operating table to free Yalu. Bit asked, "What if I miss?" Joby B replied, "Then we'll be discovered and probably get torn apart by Plak, but I might survive. They still want my smart brain." When they failed to extract any useful data from Yalu, the scientist decided to directly insert probes into his brain. At this moment of crisis, Bit's shot hit the switch perfectly. Yalu flipped around, grabbed an electric gun, and shocked the scientist. Joby threw a smoke bomb to cover their escape, but Plak gave chase. Yalu fought back and slashed off the opponent's mask, only to discover it wasn't Plak. It was the princess herself. Her expression changed, as if her gentle, kind self vanished and was replaced by a violent killer. She declared that anyone who saw her true face must die. Then came an old, white-bearded man who shockingly declared he would fight the light mech with just his mortal body, saying that if he lost, he would give up the throne. Everyone thought he was insane, but only his closest generals knew how terrifying his true strength was. Against the fierce mecha assault, the old man used a single thread to slice the light mech apart effortlessly. Humiliated, the man condensed a light blade to strike back, but the old man's body suddenly blazed with power, transforming into a fierce tiger that ripped the enemy mech to pieces. His strength was beyond imagination. Even Jelutan realized something. Belief combined with discipline could reach such heights. Riding on this momentum, the old man announced that the border rebellion had been quelled and that the empire would now move to conquer Ryut and unify the world. Meanwhile, the split-personality princess continued chasing Yalu and his group until they were saved by the sudden arrival of Sora, who turned out to be Plak's older brother. Once safe, Sora shared a heartfelt truth. 5 years ago, Ryut's king suddenly died, and with over 40 heirs, Princess Finny ranked dead last in succession, making her a near-zero chance candidate for the throne. Because of this, she enjoyed more freedom, carefree, and close to both him and Plak. Finny had always yearned to fly freely in the sky. In a training session using giant kites for flight practice, Sora mistakenly thought a monstrous bird had captured the princess and her sister, so he shot an arrow, accidentally causing the princess to fall from the sky and get injured. Though she was rescued in time and later appointed as crown princess to ascend the throne, terrifying after effects started showing soon after. Racked with guilt, Sora fled the capital and began seeking every possible cure to atone for his past mistake. Meanwhile, because she failed to capture Yalu and his group, the princess ordered the villagers near the border to be imprisoned. Even as she returned to normal and felt immense guilt, the fact remained. Yalu's group now knew her secret, and only by using the villagers as bait could they lure them out. Just then, a call came from Katie, declaring that the Lehua Empire would launch a full-scale war against them at noon the next day, leaving everyone stunned. The news struck like lightning, but suddenly the princess's tone shifted. Her evil personality emerged again, completely dismissing the old man before her and vowing to annihilate the Lehua Empire. She sneered that if anyone wanted to avoid suffering, they should come lick the blood from her boots.